Hello, my name is Brian Jones. I teach at Ben L. Smith High School, and I am going to be showing you a virtual lesson using Nearpod. The first thing I would say is that so I think that teachers using Nearpod should look and see what resources they already have available. So for my lesson that I did, I found an iCivics lesson that was already created about the constitutional principles, and what I did was I went in there. They allow you to duplicate it and then you can edit it. So I edited it to basically make it my own, to make it adapt to my style and adapt it to what I thought my students would enjoy. So here is my creation over here. Obviously you can do it as a live lesson or student paced. I created this one to be student paced, so that's why there's no separate video for a lesson. The lesson is in the Nearpod. The good thing about Nearpod is that it allows you to embed videos, so you don't have to have a separate video lesson and then have them do Nearpod. The videos can be embedded into Nearpod. So here we go. So Alright, the title of this lesson is called The Founding Principles of U.S. Government. It comes from the Civics Literacy course, Civics and Government Standard 1, which says, understand the impact of the founding principles of the U.S. on federal and state government. I've also embedded audio on most of the slides, either as a way of providing instruction or directions on how to use the different parts of the Nearpod lesson. So I'll be playing some samples as we go through this presentation. So here's the first one. Alright class, today's lesson is called The Founding Principles of U.S. Government. This comes from Civics Literacy, Civics and Government Standard 1. Understand the impact of the founding principles of the U.S. on federal and state government. Alright, so here's a basic introductory slide. Once again, came from iCivics. I decided to keep it because it was a nice little introduction. Once again, I have some audio that goes with this lesson beyond what I'm presenting. So they get an introduction to the lesson, and then I identify which specific objective I'm looking at. In this case, we're going over Objective 1.1 of the standard. Explain the influence of the founding principles on state and federal decisions using primary and secondary source documents. So once again, this was a slide that I created using PowerPoint that I embedded into this presentation as a way of making sure I'm focused on the specific objective from the standard that the kids are supposed to be studying. And once again, I have an audio clip. By the end of this lesson, students should be able to explain the influence of the founding principles on state and federal decisions using primary and secondary source documents. This comes from Civic Literacy, Civics and Government, Objective 1.1. And once again, the audio is just for support for students that need that extra bit of scaffolding. Maybe they're struggling readers, or maybe they just want to read along. It's just another way to connect to the student if you're going to be virtually learning, instead of them quietly looking at this presentation. They can hear your voice. You can add your own videos with you in it. So there are ways that you can still have a connection with the students even from a distance. Alright, so here's our warm-up slide. Once again, I added audio as a way of telling them what we're going to do. And then we get into the first activity that Nearpod uses. This is the Draw It activity. And I found that Draw It can be very, if you're not familiar with it, you got to get used to the technical parts of how to use the Draw It activity. So what I did is I created some video instructions that the kids could use if this was their first time using Draw It. You'll also notice there's a timer here. There are ways you can put timers on each slide. I only chose to do it on this one because I didn't feel that they should take too long on this, since it's just a warm-up. Give them 5 minutes and then really get into the lesson. But that's something you can choose to do or not. But here's my video instructions. Alright, I'm going to show you guys how to use the draw feature here in Nearpod, so you won't have any trouble. If it's your first time doing this, then some of the controls get a little complicated if you don't know what you're doing. I want to make it as easy as possible. So first thing you have is the canvas. Usually it's some sort of picture that you're being asked to draw. So here's our canvas, and basically all I'm doing here is I'm walking the students through how to use the functionality of the activity, how to use the different drawing features, typing features, how to erase, redo, undo. So that's basically what I'm doing here for the students, is going through some instructions on how to use this this application here, this app within Nearpod. So once they perform that warm-up activity, then we move on. Now I have a short little presentation on the Enlightenment. I thought that would be good to cover, even though it wasn't part of the original iCivics presentation. This is one of those things that I came up with that I wanted to add to what was already created. Like I said, that's what teachers should do. They should find something that's similar to what they're doing until they get really comfortable with it, and then they just tweak it. They take things out, add things to it to make it their own. I think that would be a good way of starting out with Nearpod if a teacher's not comfortable with it. So here is my Enlightenment presentation. There's audio. You can listen to it at your leisure. Then I added a video from Flocabulary. So you can add YouTube videos. They have a connection to Flocabulary, so you can directly get videos there. I found one that goes pretty well with this presentation. It's a little rap video. I guess I'll play that for you now. It's only about 3-4 minutes long.
It's John Locke, representing the Enlightenment. I got it on lock. Who wrote the Declaration of Independence?
Yeah.
It's Thomas Jefferson.
It's James Madison, father of the Constitution.
But I picked this as a way to kind of fortify the presentation that they had just seen. So after I gave a little brief lecture on the Enlightenment using that slide, then I'm going to back it up with a video here, a short, quick video before they get into probably what will be the toughest part, is the reading part, where they actually have to read some documents.
No abolishing. I advocate revolution like Che. When the state gets too powerful and too paid, your whole country owes me a debt. The name's John Locke, don't forget.
Hey yo, I'm ill with the 12 scales. I'm Thomas Jefferson. Every line I wrote probably hit you like some medicine. British.
Alright, for the sake of time, I'll go ahead and pause that and we'll move on. Alright, so this is where I introduce them to the next activity. If you recall from the objectives, we're supposed to use sources, primary, secondary sources. So here they're going to be actually using some of the pretty good informational text that iCivics provides. They have basically some handouts of reading that you can embed the PDFs into Nearpod. That's what I explain here to them. But they're going to be looking at those readings, and then they're going to be asked to do some writing, open-ended questions to test, to check what they have read. So here's the first page. we go. Alright, so here's the first page. So they would open that up, they would read it. Once they've read it, then they would go to the next slide, which would give them a question to answer. Alright, they get a second page, do some more reading, get another question, more reading, get another question. So they do that 3 times. And then what I decided to do was I really wanted to hit on federalism because I didn't think the reading really touched on federalism much. And I knew that was a big topic that needed to be covered when understanding American government. So I created this presentation slide and embedded it to give a little mini lesson just on federalism. Once again, I break it down for them, I read parts of it to them, so teachers can add some narration to the slides. That could be very helpful. Basically what that means is that there is a sharing of power between the national government and the state governments. Alright, then a video. So here I embedded a YouTube video, one of my favorite YouTube videos on federalism from Constitutional Hall Pass. I think they do a pretty good job, a really good job of breaking down federalism. So once again, you can embed video into Nearpod to back up what it is you want to do.
Welcome to Constitution Hall Pass. I'm Bijan Ngo, here at the National.
Alright, moving on. So once we get all that out, those last 5 slides or so, that would be the meat of the assignment, the meat of the lesson, where you are doing the reading, watching a video on a particular topic, getting the information. So here is where we start to practice some of the information that was learned. So we're going back to the draw it feature. So there's a lot you could do with the draw it feature. Here I'm asking them to make connections to the various principles. They're supposed to connect and then type out, using the draw it feature, the text box, explain why certain principles are related to each other, or how they can be connected. So that's an activity to assess, what connections did they make to the material that was presented. Okay, now we get into the primary source section. So once again, I'm using something that iCivics came up with, but I really enjoyed it. I thought it was a good activity to do. So I explain how to do it here. They're going to be given 5 different quotes from primary sources, and then they have to apply those to the principles that they learned about. Let's see if I can pull one up for you. Yeah. So here's a quote from Federalist 45. They're supposed to read that, decide which principle applies to that primary source quote. It asks them to underline it, so they would go back and use the drawing features to highlight or underline parts of the quote, and then they would use the text box feature in Draw It to type an answer here that explains the connection between what Madison said and the principle that they selected here in Part A. Alright, so once the kids are done with the slide, they're going to move on to the other remaining slides. So they have 5 slides in all to work with to help them analyze what they've learned, to apply what they've learned to primary source quotes. And then we're going to get to the class discussion section. So this is a little collaboration activity using the collaboration tool that Nearpod has. So I've given them instructions here. Tells them they're going to be given a question. They're going to share their thoughts using the collaboration board, which is very similar to what Padlet is, if you're familiar with Padlet. And then they're going to be able to respond to each other's comments on the collaboration board. Alright, and this is what the collaboration board looks like. Constitutional principles. Their prompt is, why are constitutional principles critical to a free society? So they'll be able to post basically sticky notes. They can post pictures and then respond to each other's comments. So that's a good kind of final activity to get them to collaborate a little bit, get them to look at other people's thoughts on the principles, and to kind of finish things off there. Then they come to the reflection. So I decided to end the assignment with a reflection, and it's pretty simple. They're just going to be given a question. Which principle do you feel like you understand the least? And they're going to get their choices: separation of powers, federalism, rule of law, limited government, popular sovereignty. And then students will be able to pick which one they feel that they need more practice with. And then as a teacher, I'd be able to come to this screen and see which one has the most votes in terms of the principle that I might need to go back and cover a little bit more. So that's a cool tool that Nearpod has that you can use as a reflection piece. So after that, they are done. I give them a nice little finishing up message there. And one thing you'll notice, you can add GIFs. So I've added a couple of GIFs to the presentation. That's a way teachers can kind of add their own little flavor, their own little spin to the assignment, so that it might not be so dry. And then just for credit, since this was an iCivics Nearpod originally, I decided to keep the iCivics slide as kind of like giving them credit. This slide takes them to the games page. So I know a lot of teachers like to use iCivics games to help fortify some of the lessons that they teach. So that's it, Nearpod. That's my lesson. Hope you guys enjoyed it. Stay safe.